Have you ever spent years with someone believing that you were building a future together, only to wake up one day and realize you were just an option to them? I did. For 4 years, I was in a relationship that I thought was leading toward, forever. We were engaged, planning our wedding, and I truly believed we were solid. Until one night, out of nowhere, he said something that completely shattered me. "You're not worthy of being my wife. I'll find someone better." I'll never forget those words. But what happened next? Well, let's just say life had a funny way of proving him wrong. Because what started as the worst night of my life turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. But I didn't know that yet. At the time, all I knew was that the person I had given my heart to saw me as less than. And that realization, that changed everything. I was with Ethan for just over 4 years. The first 2? Amazing. We moved in together after a year and a half. My parents weren't thrilled, but hey, times have changed. We had everything in common. Same taste in movies, same love for trying new restaurants. We could talk for hours about the most random things. He would surprise me with little things. Coffee waiting for me on the nightstand, sending me funny videos during the day. Just normal couple stuff. But it made me feel like I had found my person. When he proposed on our 3rd anniversary, I was beyond excited. It wasn't anything grand, just the 2 of us at the lake where we had our first date. The ring wasn't huge, but it was perfect. I cried. I called my mom. I started planning our wedding for the next summer. And then things started to change. At first, it was subtle. Little comments about my appearance that weren't quite insults, but definitely weren't compliments either. "That dress would look better if you toned up a little." "Have you thought about a different hairstyle? Something more sophisticated?" I laughed it off at first, but then it wasn't just about my looks. He started commenting on my job, on my ambition, or as he put it, my lack of ambition. He'd make fun of me in front of his friends, questioning things I said as if I was stupid for not knowing something he thought was obvious. And he even started making comments about my family, that they were too simple, that I needed to elevate myself if I wanted to be his wife. And the worst part? I started to believe him. I changed my hair. I bought new clothes. I worked longer. Hours. I even took online courses, because apparently I needed to be more cultured. Looking back, it's embarrassing how much I tried to mold myself into whatever he wanted. But when you love someone, you don't always see the toxicity. Not until you're drowning in it. The breaking point came 3 months before the wedding. We were going over the final details when he casually mentioned that his mom was worried I'd pick a predictable wedding dress instead of something classy enough. I was confused. He hadn't even seen the dress I chose. I wanted it to be a surprise. So I asked him what he meant, and that's when he snapped. He went on this long rant about how he'd been settling, how I wasn't wife material for someone like him, how his family was concerned about how I'd represent him in social circles. Then he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're not worthy of being my wife. I can find someone better." 4 years together, and that's what he thought of. Me. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just laughed. I don't know why. It just came out. The absurdity of it all hit me at once. This man, who I had been trying so hard to please, thought I wasn't good enough, when the reality was he wasn't worthy of me. He looked confused, then angry. He demanded to know what was so funny. I just shook my head and told him he was right. We shouldn't get married. But not because I wasn't worthy, because I deserved better. I grabbed my purse, walked out, and never looked back. The tears came later that night. 4 years is a long time to invest in someone, and realizing it was over hit me hard. But under the sadness, I felt something else. Relief. Like I had been carrying a weight on my back for years, and someone had finally taken it off. Ethan blew up my phone for days. First, he was angry, calling me dramatic, saying I was overreacting. Then he was apologetic. He didn't mean it. He was just stressed. And finally, he was condescending. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. You'll regret this." But I didn't. Not for a second. I stayed with my best friend Hannah while I figured things out. Canceling the wedding was a nightmare. By the way, wedding insurance? Absolutely worth every penny. But my friends and family were amazing. They helped contact vendors, return gifts, and break the news to guests. The hardest part was going back to our apartment to get my things. I timed it so he wouldn't be there. But of course, halfway through packing, he walked in. He switched between begging me to reconsider and coldly reminding me that I was making a mistake. And then he said, "Good luck finding someone else at your age." I was 29. As if that was ancient, as if my life was over. But that moment, that was when I knew, without a doubt, I was doing the right thing. I got my own apartment across town, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I decorated however I wanted. I watched whatever shows I wanted. I started picking up hobbies I had abandoned because he thought they were childish. I reconnected with friends I had lost because he didn't like them. And you know what? I was happy. Then, 6 months later, I met Ryan. He was different. He listened. He asked questions, not to judge, but because he actually cared. He never made me feel like I had to prove myself. We started dating, slowly, naturally, no pressure, no expectations. And then, a year later, he proposed. It wasn't some big, over-the-top moment, just the two of us at a park, sitting on a bench after getting ice cream. And when he asked, I didn't hesitate. Yes. Which brings us back to today. Ethan's new girlfriend, the one he thought was better than me, she just married someone else. And now, he's the one begging to come back. But the only person reading his desperate messages is my husband. And I'm too busy. Living my best life to care, because I was worthy all along. He was just too blind to see it. At first, I ignored them. It was funny, really. The same man who once told me I wasn't worthy of being his wife was now sending me messages like, "I've been thinking about us a lot." I realize now I made a huge mistake. Can we just talk? For closure? Closure? The only closure I needed was the sound of my own laughter the night I walked out of his life. But he didn't stop. Every few days, another text, another weak attempt to worm his way back in. The thing is, I never even had to read them. Because Ryan did. Not because he was insecure. Not because he needed to check up on me. But because I handed him my phone and said, "Can you deal with this?" And he did. Every time the same response. "Hey, Ethan, this is Ryan. Ruby is busy being happy. Hope you can do the same." And every time, Ethan would go silent for a few weeks. Then he'd try again. Until one day, he finally tried calling. I was making dinner when my phone rang. I glanced at the screen, saw Ethan's name, and, without even thinking, handed it to Ryan. He answered with the same calm confidence I had fallen in love with. "Hey, Ethan, what's up?" Silence. Then a hesitant voice. Is Ruby there?" "She's here, yeah, but she's kind of busy, unpacking from our honeymoon." Another silence. This one longer. Then Ethan stammered something about just wanting to congratulate us. Ryan didn't gloat. He didn't rub it in. He just kept his voice polite and steady. "Thanks, man. We appreciate it. But Ruby has moved on, and I think it'd be best if you did too." Click. Ethan never called again. After that, life went on. Ryan and I settled into married life. We bought a house, a little fixer-upper with a backyard big enough for the golden retriever we'd always talked about. We named her Luna. The house needed work. The sink gurgled in the middle of the night. The attic had a family of squirrels living in it. The dishwasher broke a week after we moved in. But through all of it, I was happy. Happier than I ever thought possible. And then, one day, out of nowhere, Ethan showed up. It was our housewarming party. Nothing fancy, just some close friends and family, a few drinks, and Monica's famous buffalo chicken dip. I was in the kitchen when Monica walked in with that look on her face. "So, Guess who just pulled up? I knew before she even said it. Ethan, holding a bottle of wine, standing awkwardly in my driveway. I sighed, not in fear, not in anger, just exhaustion. Let him in, I said. Might as well get this over with. He looked different, a little disheveled, a little lost. Like a man who had finally realized he had bet on the wrong horse. The first few minutes were polite, painfully polite. He asked about the house, the neighborhood, the weather. Then one of Ryan's cousins, completely unaware of the situation, made an innocent comment. You two are so perfect for each other. You just fit. That's when Ethan snapped. He mumbled something under his breath. I caught it. Ryan caught it. What was that? I asked. And then he unraveled. He went on this bizarre rant about how he had prepared me for Ryan, how his criticisms had motivated me to improve myself, how he had essentially made me better. So really, I should be grateful for him. It was so delusional, so pathetic, that for a moment I almost felt bad for him. Almost. But Ryan? He handled it like a pro. No yelling, no threats. Just a calm, steady voice as he said, If anything, I'm grateful you let her go. But let's be clear, Ruby's happiness has nothing to do with you. You tore her down. She built herself back. Up. And that's all her. Ethan stared at him. Then he turned to me, eyes full of something that looked like regret. Do you ever wonder what could have been? I didn't hesitate. No, because I'm too busy being grateful for what is. The look on his face? Priceless. Monica chose that moment to drop the final bombshell. Oh, by the way, Ethan, you know, Daisy, the girl you left Ruby for? He stiffened. She's engaged to someone else and expecting her first baby this summer. You could see the realization hit him like a truck. Karma, my dear friends, is undefeated. Ethan left soon after. Ryan walked him to the door. No malice, no gloating, just quiet confidence. Before he left, Ethan turned and muttered one last thing to Ryan. Was she always this stubborn? Ryan smirked. I prefer the term self-assured. Door closed. Story over. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Ethan. I'm sorry for yesterday. I didn't mean to cause a scene. I hope you're happy. That was it. No more desperate pleas. No more weird breadcrumb texts, just that. A simple, vague, too little, too late apology. I never responded. Some conversations are better left to end. And that's it. My story. From being told I wasn't worthy, to realizing I was never the problem in the first place. Ethan tore me down. Ryan built me back up. No. Scratch that. I built myself back up. And that's the real lesson here. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's standards. It isn't something you have to earn by changing yourself. It's something you already have. You just have to recognize it. And when you do, you'll never let anyone question it again.